Hey, thank you all for being here. We appreciate it. Another great crowd at Headflyer Brewing for the John Krasinski Show. We've been so lucky. The guests we've been able to bring here. We've had Tim Connolly, Chris Finch, Michael Grady, Dane Moore, and we've always wanted. In fact, I'm going to start this with a story. I started this podcast network however many years ago, and I really wanted Jim Petersen to be on the podcast network. So we did a podcast together, and it was too good. It was so good. It was so good. Jim was like, I can't do that. I can't do that all the time. I'm being too honest. I'm saying things I might not. So Jim was gracious enough to actually do the podcast. He was great on it. And then he realized maybe not the best career move at that exact time. And luckily...
Plan B.
I mean, obviously John is the best at what he does, so I'm very lucky to have had John, but, but it was really cool.
What could have been?
My wife said the same thing. Yeah.
You just got to end up with the right partner. It doesn't matter how it doesn't matter how the dating goes.
Yep,
you got to end up in the right marriage. So anyway, Jim has always been gracious with his time. He's a fantastic analyst, and now he's the latest great guest on the John Krasinski Show. John, why don't you get us rolling?
Yeah, just thanks to Jim for coming along and having a little fun tonight, and thanks to all you on a Tuesday night to come out. And the pizza I had earlier, if you want it, is really, really good. And we have a bunch of giveaways tonight. We have 3 sets of 4 tickets to get in to Target Center, and as you know, that's not easy to do these days. It's sold out, so we will give those away at the end of the podcast. We have some athletic merch. We have some gift cards from Headflyer, and so if you stick around and have the raffle, we'll do that. Hopefully you all go home happy, but I'm really excited to kind of break things down with you guys about the Wolves, because it's been an interesting start to the season. I'm sure you all are both a little bit nervous, maybe a little excited after the last couple of games, but I'm just looking forward to tonight and having a good time.
We're officially coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services Studios. Of course, in reality, we're coming to you from Headflyer Brewing, the site of our live shows. Thanks to Headflyer. They always are so gracious and let us do such a great show here. Thanks to our many sponsors, Princeton's Liquors, TSR Injury Law. Steve Terry usually comes out and joins us at the shows. He's under the weather. He won't be here today, but we love Steve. True Vision Institute, Headflyer Brewing, Shepherd Goods and Lamb Chops clothing line, and we're going to have live questions over here. Let us get into the show a little bit, then pop up, ask a question. We want to hear what you want. We want to answer the questions that you have. Also, we have some dignitaries here today. Dawn Mitchell from Fox 9, now doing a podcast with us. A lot of women's sports, but not just women's sports. Dawn has been a great partner, a great teammate. Check out her podcast as well. We do basketball on that show as well. Of course, we have Tika here, great to see Tika again, and Mr. Matt Lloyd. Matt and I used to live down the hall from each other in an apartment building, and then I moved. And I don't think I've seen him since. I don't think I've seen you officially since the promotion, so congratulations. Matt's a great guy, and I appreciate you being here tonight, Matt.
And his wife, Courtney.
Oh, hi, Courtney.
And Timberwolves general manager, Matt Lloyd. So if you have any grief or any grievances to air, right there, go ahead and just let him have it, all right?
But seriously, Matt's always been a great guy. We appreciate him being here as well. Let's just start really big picture. I mean, it feels like a feeling out time for this team right now. Jim, where do you think the team is right now?
I think it's in a good place. I think that this roster is, we talked about this last year, JK. It's one of the most talented rosters. We've been around for a long time. How many years is this for you?
This is 21.
So this is 27 for me. Mm-hmm. And so these last 2 rosters have been the most talented rosters that we've ever seen. So I just think that after, making a big trade like they made, like bringing in Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo and integrating that into the system, there's a growing period that has to happen. And so I really feel like these last 2 games, I'm so glad that these last 2 games happened, by the way, because I don't know when you called me to ask me to be here, but then we lose the 3 games,
right
and I'm
going,
Portland, I really don't want to show up this event like having lost 5 in a row.
Yeah.
But so Ant was amazing in Sacramento. Those Sacramento games are always, you guys have to imagine, the Sacramento games are always incredible, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, every time we play the Kings, it's always instant classic. And it was that night, too. Ant was so great in the fourth quarter and in overtime. And then what happened against Phoenix, it was disjointed. It was a weird afternoon game. But when it came down to the final moments of that game, the way that we got stops and Finchie made adjustments and made things happen, I just really think that game was super exciting. I just think that's the way this season's going to go. I think it's going to be it's going to be a wave, but we've got Anthony Edwards. And at the end of the day, I think that 23-year-old is going to energize us each and every night.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what you can tell right now with the team is that they are looking for their identity. Finch has said it for several times this season. And one thing that I overlooked in the Rudy Gobert trade was the human element of moving from one city to another, getting settled in, figuring out your teammates, all of those things. And this one with Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo coming in was 2 days before training camp started. So everything was just much more compressed. And so that human element is still there with all of these guys. And I think we all want to see, right away, Game 5, everything click together, but it is clear that they are still figuring each other out. They're still trying to find that chemistry and cohesion that this team had last year. But if there is an identity already with this team, it is that at the end of games, you have two elite shot creators, shot makers. And we've seen that in back-to-back games now. Ant took over in overtime and hit some ridiculous shots, just like that very few other people can create. And Julius then the other night was, creating that step back, just gently nudging Josh Okogie out of the way and creating space for himself and drilling that. But that's what these two guys can do, is that when the offense is ragged, when maybe you're not getting as many stops as you want, you can put the ball in these two guys' hands and they are going to create something that is usually a really good look for themselves or others. And so until everything comes together, you can lean on that, and that's not a bad thing.
Well, look, in Sacramento, we're sitting there, and as De'Aaron Fox is clicking up his point total, and he had 21 at the half, ended up with 60. But as that number's clicking up, I get a text from our PR staff saying that the person that had the highest point total against the Minnesota Timberwolves was Julius Randle,
57.
who had 57. Mm-hmm. And so Julius Randle had 57 in that game. And one of the things I told Julius, I hadn't had a chance to really spend time with him when they first got here because things were so disjointed. Mm-hmm. But I talked to him at shoot-around in Los Angeles after shoot-around. And so I told him, I said, Julius, the thing I love about your game is that you can play in any era. Mm-hmm. His game allows him to, he could have been a player back in the 80s and 90s. He could have been grinding it out against Buck Williams and all these great power forwards back in the day. He could have played against KG and all those guys back in KG's era in the early 2000s. And he's modern today because of the way that he hit that shot at the end of game situation. Julius is still shooting, 38% from three-point range right now? So one of the things that Finchie was saying about Julius is that the way that he's going to be able to integrate himself better is that when he feels more comfortable shooting the three-point shot. And so it's really important for him to do that. And his teammates are all on board with him being aggressive. So, JK, we know that when it comes down to playoff time, it comes down to it's not really about the offense. You have to be able to play in isolation. You have to be able to game in and game out, win games when it comes down to single possession at the end of game situation. And to have two guys that can score at that level, I just think it's different. Carl was a willing scorer for sure, and Carl was an unbelievable player. But I just think Julius is a lot of what Carl did. The ability to shoot threes, being able to post up and being that up. But he's a bully ball kind of player. Like Julius is I'm going to exert my will on you. Mm-hmm. And he's going to be able to collapse the defense. One of the things we've seen from Julius, and we've already known this because he's been a great passer his whole career, but the way that he's able to collapse the defense and get it out to three-point shooters has been amazing. I mean, he has really done a great job of that, integrating himself into this offense with that metric.
Well, and then the way I've put it is Carl is a better pure shooter than Julius, no question. But Julius is a better shot creator. And what they missed in that Dallas series was another guy who could just go get a bucket when Ant was getting all of the attention. And you could see that in the ends of those Dallas games, Ant was the one who had to create everything on his own. And the Mavericks had Luka and Kyrie. And so they just could not keep up that way. And so Julius being the creative shot maker and creator that he is, and the tough shot maker that he is, I think is huge. And I don't think, Jim, that you can understate how important that moment was for Julius against
I
Phoenix
agree.
is
I
like
agree.
he's new to this. Like,
Yeah.
and we have been around him now. He feels everything, right? He is absorbing energy, and to be there to hit that shot, to see his teammates swarm him, and the roof was blowing off of it. I think that's going to really kind of pave the way for Julius to feel like I'm in Minnesota now. Like, this is my team. Everyone's behind me. And he's a vibes guy. And so if you get that kind of thing going for him, I think that's going to build momentum going forward.
You know, I really think, and I was, Matt's here with Courtney, and one of the things, you know, I've been saying this about this Timberwolves franchise since I've been here. This group with Tim Connolly and Matt Lloyd at the helm and all the people that are involved, the way that they onboard athletes here now, like the way they bring them in and they make them feel comfortable, you could tell. I mean, I saw a video on Instagram from Julius's wife, who was talking about how amazing it was, and this is from his wife that was saying this, how amazing it's been to be integrated into this system, how everybody's been so kind, and the people in Minnesota, how they've also accepted them and made them feel welcome. That's no small thing, JK.
No.
So what you're saying is like, it's all a vibe. It is a vibe, and it helps them feel like they're part of this community. So it's the organization, it's the people, it's the way that they're covered, and I also have to say too, as I don't really consider myself a member of the media. I feel like I'm sort of like in this nebulous sort of, I'm not really the team, I'm not really the media, I'm sort of in this in-between ground where I can kind of observe. And the way that this team is covered by people like this, the way that, you know, Dan and Jason, everybody that's involved with this organization in terms of how they cover it. You guys talk to these guys, and it's amazing what you get out of them in the locker room. It's great information. It's part of the community, and it's why you all people are here. It's because of people like John and Jim that make this community great. So
Mostly John.
but it all you know, it starts with a vibe, and so I just think that that where we're at right now is in a really good place.
Just to reintroduce the show, this is the John Krasinski Show. This is part of TalkNorth.com. It's a podcast network we started a ways back. We've been very lucky to get it to this point and be able to do shows like this. Alex Haugen is our producer today. New Vice President of Business Development, Andrew Height, is here tonight. Andrew came on board with us a few months ago, and we're hoping to do some really big things with the network. So thank you all for your support. We do appreciate it. Tell me what it's like to work with Michael Grady, because we love Michael Grady.
He's an amazing human being. He's you know, what really strikes me about Grady is that he's a self-made guy. Where he's come from, the way that he used to multitask down in Indiana, the way that he had a vision for himself. I talked to him a lot about this, about how he decided to get into broadcasting, and he just had a vision for himself. And so, I mean, this guy was doing a radio show in Indianapolis. He was the in-arena announcer for 10 years for the Indiana Pacers and also the Fever as well. So I remember being in a game when I was coaching with the Lynx, and we were warming up on the floor before the game, and I hear this voice, and I was like, who is this voice? The voice of God was talking, and so I look over and I was like, oh, it's this guy's like he's like this little guy. Yeah. But so he had this huge voice, and so I've known of Michael Grady for a long time. But so the way that he's grinded, the way that he's gone from, you know, having all these jobs and working on his craft to getting to Brooklyn and becoming this really great sideline reporter, to the point where he was, you know, earmarked and brought here to Minnesota because of those talents. And he's just an amazing human being. He's so funny and light, and he's just a great conversationalist. He makes you feel like the most important person in the room when you're talking to him. Mm-hmm. And so then also his professionalism too. Like he's just the most professional guy to work with. I've been really lucky in my 27 years with the Timberwolves to work with Chad Hartman, Tom Hanneman, Dave Benz, and now Michael Grady. I just can't tell you how much respect he has gotten. And now that he's a national guy, I think everybody thinks that he's going to end up leaving the Minnesota Timberwolves because he's become national. But like when you look at all the national guys in the NBA, Mark Jones in Sacramento and
Breen in New York,
Mike Breen, and like all these national, Ian Eagle, all the guys that are in Brooklyn, you know, they all are national guys, but they love the team connection. And let me tell you, Michael Grady, he loves being in Minnesota, and he loves covering Anthony Edwards.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that's the thing I like about Grady, like you said, Jim, is that I think everyone sees now he's doing national stuff, and it's like, holy cow, this guy came out of nowhere. Like, this happened so fast for him. No, it didn't. Yeah. It was a grind. Like, he was at the very bottom rung and worked his way up to where he is today. And now, he like, if Breen ever retires, like, he's legit in the conversation, which is unbelievable.
You could literally lose him to Brooklyn or New York from that standpoint because they love him so much in New York. Mm-hmm. But he went from like being a sideline reporter, because Ryan Ruocco and Ian Eagle would do national gigs all the time. There would be room for him to do 5 or 6 games for the Brooklyn Nets, and so he got those reps, and because of those reps, he got NBA TV reps. So he would do NBA TV games, he would do summer league games, and all of a sudden, the league starts taking notice. And the fact that we brought him here was a major coup. We're really lucky to have Michael Grady here in Minnesota.
No doubt about it. All right, let's talk about the business here for a second. Yes, please cheer Michael Grady. John's a beat writer. He's been doing it a long time. He's great at it. His job is to give you the information with perspective. I'm a columnist. I'm supposed to tell you what I think about it. You have a really interesting position. You're a Minnesota guy, NBA player. You've been doing this a long time. You're aligned with the team. You also feel obligated to get, to be honest with your audience. How do you navigate all those things in your head as you're doing a game?
Well, I mean, it's interesting because I never really wanted to be a broadcaster. It's like I kind of fell into the position because I did radio first with Chad Hartman. So, they kind of asked me to audition for the job. I auditioned. They gave me the job, and all of a sudden I'm doing, radio with Chad Hartman, and I'm calling games for, KFAN back in those days, back in the 98, 99 season. So, I did radio first, so I got my, my teeth cut doing that. But then when you start doing TV, it's just, I don't know, it's easier because in some ways it's a play-by-play job, but also you have to bring in and bring in the analysis part of it. And so I did it from a player perspective, but where I really made the leap is when I started coaching in the WNBA. I think that when you start going into the WNBA, and I was coaching and breaking down games and watching video and coming up with game plans, it made me a much better analyst. And so from that standpoint, I think that it just comes from that. It comes from hard work. There's no substitute, John, from sitting in front of that computer screen and watching games and breaking down games. And so that's where I really learned how to be a better analyst in this game, by going from the coaching side. So you learn it from the player side. You can be an analyst, but when you coach, that's how you really kind of learn how to delve deep into the game and kind of figure it out.
And just to give people a little background on Jim, or a little behind the scenes, is he is obviously a coach background, a player background, and so he does all of these. He breaks down all the film. He looks at all the advanced statistics. He's super homework guy, but then he also will call me every once in a while and, hey, what are you hearing about this? Hey, let's dive into the information part of it as well. And so when you talk about trying to amass a global view of the team, where it's at, who is getting along, who isn't, what's working and what's not. I always lean on him for a conversation on what he's seen from the X's and O's and the basketball perspective of it. And then we have lots of conversation about what's the news that's going to be coming around, what kind of trades are in the works, all of those things. And so just having someone like him to have as a sounding board, and then just to bounce information off of, hey, what do you think about this, is just super valuable for me and helping me do the job as well as I can.
One of the things, and I've gone through different iterations. When you're with a team for as long as I've been with this team, you've had different levels of access. You've had, I've had total access. I've had zero access. So sometimes you're able to go. Sometimes you're able to go to sometimes you're able to go to practice and shoot around, and sometimes you're not able to do any of that. Tips and others. There's been others, but the fact is that you can get the job done with access or without. But I got to tell you, the last 4 years with Chris Finch have been probably the best ever. Flip Saunders was great. Like when Flip and McHale were here, I was tight with those guys, and I got total access with those guys. So my early years were fantastic, and Mac and Flip were great, and so was Ryan Saunders from that matter as well. But with Finchy though, he's just the best. I mean, the level of information that he's willing to share and that his coaching staff is willing to share is just amazing. So I really can't thank him enough, and I think you feel the members of the media feel the same way. His transparency post game pressers must see. Do you guys go on YouTube and watch those things? I mean, they're just fantastic, and so he's a wordsmith. He's a basketball historian. But he, more than anything else, he's super confident in who he is and what he's about. And for him to give us as much access as he gives us, Jim, is a real testament to who Chris Finch is as a coach.
Agreed. And to top all this off, I mean, you had Jim Pete and Michael Grady on the TV side. Alan Horton, I don't know how anybody does basketball radio alone day after day, year after year, and does a great job of it. I mean, Timberwolves fans are pretty lucky. A combination of the people in charge of the team, access, transparency, and the people who cover the team on a daily basis. It's pretty good stuff.
Yeah, I would say it's the best it's ever been. Horton is amazing in his own right. I'm really lucky because the Timberwolves allowed me to playoff games last year, and actually that's going to end this year, by the way. So at the end of this season, we're going to still be able to broadcast the first round of the playoffs. But this is the last year of that. That's gone after this season. So we will no longer be able to broadcast any playoff games. They'll all be streamed or whatever the platform is going to be. But Alan is gracious enough to allow me to come with him and join him during the broadcast. So I get to work with two of the greatest people in Timberwolves history right here. I mean, it's been great.
All right, now we have a microphone here. We'd like you to come up and ask whatever questions you would like. I'm going to just kind of do a little business here, so contemplate your questions, get in line, do whatever you'd like to do. Reminder, we officially are coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services Studios. We want to thank Princeton's Liquors.
Princeton's Liquors in Maple Grove. We've been telling you about it for a while now. It is a family-run business that has been in business for decades and decades in the North Metro. Bill Princeton is a basketball community supporter. He was an intern with the Lynx and the Wolves back in the day, wore the Crunch costume in the summer to fill in a little bit. So he's got deep roots in the Minnesota basketball community. And more importantly, he's got everything that you would want from a liquor, wine, spirits kind of perspective at Princeton's Liquors in Maple Grove. Their expertise lies in craft beer and in bourbon. So if you like to find unique craft beers, if you're looking for a hard to find bourbon, go to Princeton's Liquors. There's a good chance that they can deliver what you're looking for. Great pricing from the top shelf to kind of the more affordable brands that you want out there. You just go into Princeton's Liquors, tell them the John Krasinski Show sent you. Support the people who support us and support this basketball community, starting with Princeton's Liquors in Maple Grove.
Usually Steve Terry is here representing TSR Injury Law. He's sick tonight. We need to get out there and do a show with him soon. He's a great friend. He's been a great friend of the network. We trust him implicitly. So, yes, if you're ever injured, call 612-TSR-TIME.
I'm really enjoying the TSR ads featuring Naz Reid because, we know Steve Terry. We know the people at TSR. We like them. We trust them. We know Naz Reid. He's one of the most endearing stories in Minnesota sports. And to see them just kind of yucking it up during these commercials is an absolute blast. The important thing is, if you're ever injured, you just have to remember to call 612-TSR-TIME, 612-TSR-TIME. They will only charge you if they win your case, and they win so many cases they get to hang out with Naz Reid. So that's the best endorsement I can give them. 612-TSR-TIME.
And by the way, Naz Reid, I love the Naz Reid commercials. Those are fantastic. John has had great experiences with True Vision Institute.
True Vision in Bloomington. I had LASIK surgery with True Vision this summer, and I can't tell you how many people have come up and asked me about it, have given compliments on it, are intrigued about how the process went. And what I tell them is go to True Vision, go to truevision.com, set up a consultation and go in, and you will be blown away just like I was. The people there are so friendly. They are so knowledgeable. They walk you through all of your vision correction options that are available to you. No pressure on anything, but you can walk into that consultation and then walk out of it knowing that you went through a thorough examination and that you have all of your options at your disposal, and you can make the decision that is best for you. But once you go through it, if you go through the LASIK like I did, it is a game changer. Like, life is so much easier. I don't have to mess with glasses or contacts. I don't have to go back to the doctor every year or 2 years for a new prescription, trying to find the more stylish glasses, all of those things. I can just see great right now without any of those hassles. And it's all thanks to the good folks at True Vision. So go to truevision.com to set up your consultation and go in and just watch and feel how enthusiastic, helpful, knowledgeable the people are there. They will get you seeing better and feeling great about yourself, just like they did with me. True Vision Institute in Bloomington, truevision.com.
And we want to thank Shepherd Goods and Lamb Chops clothing line.
SGLambchops.com is the place to go for super stylish, super comfortable casual wear, sweats, shirts, hoodies, hats, anything you could look for in the casual wear department. SGLambchops.com has it. Put in JONK20 in the promo code for 20% off anything that you want there. I'm seeing Lamb Chops clothing not just at Target Center, but certainly when I get on the road. Even I was in Sacramento and I saw it out there. So it is spreading around, but it's a local company with very high quality stuff that will last you a long time and will make you look good while you're wearing it for as long as you want to. You can wear it at home. You can wear it out in the North Loop on the town and feel great about it. But go to sglambchops.com, promo code JONK20 for 20% off anything you get there.
And was there anybody from Headflyer we wanted to have come up and chat?
Thanks to everyone, to Neil, to Dan, to everyone here who works so hard. But yeah, I think we'll talk to Neil in a little bit here.
Great.
And he can kind of tell us a little bit about Headflyer and all the events and things that are going on here. But what a great partner Headflyer has been. I've always said it, like, I live not far from here. We came here with my wife long before we had a business relationship. They have great beer. This is an awesome tap room. So can't recommend enough coming by to check this out.
So let's talk about, before the show started, Jim and I were talking about position basketball versus positionless basketball. We were talking about point guards. Talk to me about the importance of Mike Conley, the point guard position in the modern world.
Well, I mean, so we were just talking about traditional point guards. So, you think about how the game used to be played. There was a lot of play calling being done. You needed a floor general to be able to run your offense. And so it's not so important anymore because they don't play call as much because there's positionless basketball. The classic floor general point guard isn't as important. And so Mike is one of a dying breed. And so we were talking about this, Grady and I were talking about this last game because of Tyus Jones. Tyus Jones is in town, and he's also in that dying breed, JK, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So Tyus and his brother Trey, and there's only a handful of them left. I mean, we talk about the death of the post up and the big man, but the death of the floor general kind of point guard is kind of out there as well. The point guard position has become a scoring position. So when you think about Chris Paul and what he means to the NBA right now, he's probably the old head in the NBA right now. So he just passed the 12,000 assist mark. He's going to be able to pass. He's going to pass Jason Kidd here in 80 assists. So he's like the main guy right now, along with Kyle Lowry. You think about Mike Conley, what he means to this team. This team really took off when Mike Conley came on board. Wouldn't you say, John?
Yeah, for sure. And I think, like, building off of that, one of the important things for Mike is he is a floor general, but he's shot three-pointers better than he ever had last year. Now, this year has been a little bit slower start that way, but I think that he figured out if he's going to continue to be viable in this modern game, the catch and shoot, like, it has to be almost automatic. And last year it's like 45%. And so when he gets back to that as well, this season. He's starting to hit more of them. Like, that just adds to his game and has him be additive, because you have seen the last couple of games, he started out playing 22, 23, 24 minutes. Then it was 37 minutes against Sac, and it was 30 minutes last night, or two nights ago against Phoenix. Like, the importance of him into what they're doing and organizing the offense and getting people shots and all of those things is just, you can't even put a measure on it.
Well, one of the things that I was talking to Tyus before the game, because I just stopped him. My son Sanjay has known and played with Tyus forever, so I've known the Jones family, tremendous family, and Tyus was actually one of our team guys when I coached with the Minnesota Lynx. Tyus and Trey, and his brother JD, all three of them, all three of those Jones boys came in on their own volition to practice against the Minnesota Lynx back in 2011 all the way through. And, so Tyus and I have that connection. So we were just talking about the point guard position, and I was asking him about, how it's changed for him from, when he first got in the league 10 years ago to where it is now in terms of, the play calling part of it. Because, offenses used to be pretty regimented when it came to how they were run. Coaches were very stringent in terms of play calling. Possessions were more scripted. When you hear Chris Finch talk about scripted versus non-scripted, structure, like the structure of a play call system, coaches and the point guards had to be well versed in the offense. They had to be able to, like a quarterback in the NFL, they had to have a really good command of the playbook. And so that's where that kind of has gone by the wayside. So Tyus was saying, so instead of play calling now, what I more do is I read and react. And so much of the offense now is about being unstructured and to be unpredictable. You don't want to be able to be scouted. Like a lot of these coaches, when you're talking about modern offenses now, yes, you're going to have your actions that people are going to be able to scout, but they also don't want to have a lot of predictability to it, so it's read and react. And so that's where Tyus has been telling me, like, where his basketball IQ has gone from. It's gone from being a floor general, being able to have a command of the offense, to being more read and react kind of for him being successful on the floor. And being able to shoot, though, is really super important. Being able to attack the basket and finish at the rim, and being able to shoot open threes.
Jim, you remember when on draft night when Flip trades up and gets him, and then goes down to 508 at the time, and gets Tyus, and I can hear him in my ear right now, just saying, hey, I told you this wasn't a gimmick. I told you he can play. Everyone said that all I wanted to do was sell some tickets. No, this guy can play. And Tyus has had a great career because of that.
There's a lot of similarities between Mike Conley and Tyus Jones in terms of
winners. Winners.
Tyus is. I say that about Tyus all the time. I would sit there and watch this dude playing pickup games, and he would win. He would win all the time. He's won at every level. He won in high school. He won the national championship at Duke University, and he's been a winner. Whether he's
didn't win at Washington last year.
He didn't win at Washington. He did not win at Washington last year. That's right. I think that's like kind of a hopeless situation right there. But he and his brother are both winners. That family is just amazing. And so Mike Conley, what Mike has brought to this organization is so invaluable, because he's brought leadership, and he's brought consistency, and he's brought a guy that you can lean on to be able to be a mentor for the young guys. And that's been the main thing. The relationship that he and Ant have together, it's really special. And Anthony has had a lot of good mentors, Ricky Rubio to start with, but what Mike means to Ant right now is it's hard to even put a dollar value on it.
All right, we're going to take a very quick intermission just so you can go get a beer without missing anything. So grab a beer, relax a little bit. When we come back, we'd love to have people come up and ask questions, ask anything you like. If you embarrass Jim, you get bonus points. Take 5 minutes. I'm kidding. Take 5 minutes, get a beer. We'll come right back. All right, now for part 2 of the show. Let's get Neil up here from Headflyer Brewing to talk about this joint. While Neil is heading up here, reminder, we have some giveaways coming up. And, there's Neil right there. Here, grab mine, Neil.
Hello.
Neil. Hey, thank you again for having us. We love these shows. It's an absolute blast. What's going on at your joint other than the John Krasinski show?
Well, this is great. We love it. We're all about basketball and sports, and obviously coming in here watching the game. Shout out to our new food partner right outside here. We have OG Zaza Pizza. They're here every day. They make great pizzas. So come over, watch a game, have a pizza, have a beer, watch the Wild, watch the Timberwolves. Just come out and get a pizza and enjoy. We're going to do some specials and some other events here through the end of the year. We have our Banff Bash coming up in a couple weeks. So if you see some of the posters around here, we got a lot of stuff going on, having a lot of fun. But also, we're always here for the games. I love people to come out, grab a pizza, grab some beer, and enjoy and watch the games.
And as John has pointed out before, they aren't going to kick you out in the third quarter. They actually want you to stay for the whole game, and they will have the whole game on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know some of these late games are a little tough. Maybe eventually we'll move to the east, and the games will be, at 6 p.m. most of the time. But, we're here. We're open. Come out, bring a crew, and our friendly bartenders will come and watch the game with you and enjoy and pour you a beer up until the fourth quarter. And hopefully we have some exciting ones like the other night against the Suns. So. And
a reminder, this is I live in downtown Minneapolis. It takes me about 5 minutes to get here. You just get on Hennepin, go east. You will run into it. There's a lot of parking, beautiful big patio for nicer weather times. This time it's a huge room. We have a lot of people in here. Everybody's very comfortable. So there's an ideal place to, whether it's for hear the John Krasinski show or just to catch a game, come on out and support the people who support us. So thank you very much, Neil. Anything else you want to mention while I have
absolutely. Just love having you guys out. Love supporting the show, and we're huge fans of sports, huge fans of basketball. So this has always been a great connection and a great partnership for us. So appreciate everybody coming out. Enjoy. Grab some beers. Tip your bartenders. Grab some pizza. Have a good night. Cheers.
Thank you, Neil. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Neil.
All right, it is time for questions. So somebody's got to break the ice, come up, ask us a question when you get a chance. Jim, I'll just ask you. We're kind of keeping an eye on the Cleveland Cavaliers. How are the Cleveland Cavaliers 15-0?
They've got a lot of talent. They've got Donovan Mitchell. They've got great bigs. Kenny Atkinson's done a great job. Kenny Atkinson is a guy that is he's a coach a lot like Chris Finch. I think that Kenny Atkinson is a guy that can breathe confidence into players. And I think that's one of the things that when you see what he's done there for those guys, and then when you hear them talk about what he's done for them, it's the confidence that he builds. So Kenny Atkinson actually comes from a player development background. Like he's a great coach. Like he understands the X's and O's of the game, the intricacies of it. But he's one of those guys that just breeds confidence in people. And so I don't know how close it is. I'd really like to know, and when we play Cleveland here coming up, but I would really like to know how similar it is to what happened with Golden State with Mark Jackson and Steve Kerr. It's like Mark Jackson was able to build a team that was, and when you talk to the players at Golden State, they have a lot of respect for Mark Jackson and what he did for the Warriors and where they ended up going to. And you could say the same thing about J.B. Bickerstaff. J.B. did a great job in Cleveland.
Everybody doing really well in Detroit right now.
He's doing a great job. He's breathed life into those guys too. The Pistons they're 2-0 in Cup play too.
Matt Lloyd's cheering right now because that draft pick is looking okay.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. JB is one of my guys, man. JB, I've known JB since he was a player at the University of Minnesota, and I was pulling for him so much at Cleveland. But what he was able to build and the foundation he was able to lay with the Cleveland Cavaliers, JK, I think is very similar to what Mark Jackson did with the Golden State Warriors. And so Kenny Atkinson is the beneficiary of all the things that JB did before him. Mm-hmm. And so, and at the same time, just as Steve Kerr is a standalone great coach in his own right and his understanding of the game and how he's able to communicate it, I think Kenny Atkinson is the same way in Cleveland.
Interesting. All right. We're going to have Don Mitchell lead us off. Don is now doing the Dawn of Sports podcast at TalkNorth.com. We talk a lot about women's sports. We have great guests. I highly recommend checking it out. And Don also has sung backup for my band, the Bar Chords, which is going to be at Licks Friday night at 9:30. Not that you shouldn't come to Headflyer, but that's where we'll be. Don,
can we hear a few bars?
I need my band. I need a very loud amp behind me.
Come on.
Oh, actually, Don can sing a cappella.
I'm not singing right now.
Okay.
Couple more beers and you'll be doing fine.
Don, fire away.
More beers. All right, so this is a two-pronged question, but my first one, we talk about Anthony Edwards all the time. And we've all seen rookies come in that are sensational and then change. in a good way or a bad way. But what I've noticed with Ant, and I wanted your opinion on that, is that not only does he get better on the court, he also calls himself out. He also stays very open in the media that we love, an expensive middle finger, but he's still himself. What have you guys noticed in terms of, he'll call himself out and then he'll play better defense, but in terms of maturity and how he has changed since his rookie year?
Yeah, I mean, Jim talked about it a little bit ago, but the thing that's impressed me the most about him is the way that he accepts mentorship and coaching and all of those things. It started with Ricky Rubio. It went to Patrick Beverly. It went to Mike Conley. Like, there's been guys that have come through here, and he is always in the locker room after the game. We walk in, and he's sitting right next to one of those guys asking, what happened? What did you see? Here's what I saw. How do I learn from it? And for as talented and as brash as he is and as confident in himself as he has an unbelievable sense for sharing the spotlight. And anytime that he has a big game and we want to talk about that, he'll say, shit, my three ball was falling. That felt great. But then,
Jaden.
Yes, Jaden McDaniels was the MVP. Yeah. Julius Randle did this.
Yeah.
Nickeil Alexander-Walker. And so there are guys who can alienate a locker room when they get as much attention as Ant got. I mean, last year, how many Michael Jordan comparisons were there? He's on Good Morning America. He's in a movie. These are all things that a very big egoed locker room can say, why aren't they not paying attention to me? And the way that Ant is able to deflect praise from himself to others has really engendered him in that locker room and just has people ready to follow him in a way that I think is very uncommon for a 23-year-old kid.
He's super likable. I think that one of the things that we saw, JK, and you could speak to some of this too, is that KG was incredibly likable. And still is incredibly likable. You watch his podcast, he's incredibly charismatic and incredibly intelligent in what he was. But there came a point where KG kind of changed and he was more difficult to work with. And people would ask him to do stuff for the team and he wasn't as willing to do that. I think that Ant is so open and his interviewing style. When you interview him, isn't he still super open and great?
Yeah, he's exactly who he's always been.
He's not jaded. He's not jaded yet, and hopefully that never happens. But also at the same time, I think that he just is so willing to include his teammates and give praise. One of the things I was so proud of him last year for is that, whenever Carl was the player of the game, Carl would be interviewed by Katie Storm or Leah B post game, and Ant would be waiting for Carl afterwards and just waiting for him to have his moment, to share the moment with him. After all the teammates that Carl had that didn't do that with him, the fact that Ant was willing to do that, it just spoke so highly of him and his character, Don. So that's a really great perception that you're having, of being able to see what he is right now. Because besides Chris Finch, I can't wait for the Ant post-game interviews as well. When they
can't play him on FanDuel Sports.
No, there's a couple of them. Well, we do, and he has his moments. And Katie does a great job, doesn't she? And Leah, when they interview Ant, and he says what he has to say. They just keep on moving, man. It's great. But no, I just can't say enough about Ant and what he is.
Well, and the other part about that is, we have seen players come through here, and then right away, everyone is always happy. It's all fresh. There's enthusiasm, there's love of the game, and this is all great. I'm making a bunch of money, and I'm in the NBA and all this. We saw it with Kevin Love. We saw it, KG. We saw Ricky even. We saw a bunch of these guys do it, but they get worn down and they get jaded, and that's where the Rudy Gobert trade, I think, has been so undersold nationally. In terms of, you look at why did they give so much up for him? What Rudy Gobert has done for Ant is raise the floor of this team so that Ant is always playing important games with stakes and having success early in his career. Kevin Love did not have that. KG, it took him 8 years to get out of the first round. Ricky never got it. Al Jefferson never got it. Any of these other guys, Andrew Wiggins didn't have it. So they lost so often, and these seasons are so long when you are losing like the Wolves were losing. And so to have Ant now brought up in this kind of ecosystem of expectations and of trust in the organization that he is going to be surrounded by talent, has coaches around him, and they're going to be playing deep into the playoffs. They have that chance if everyone does what they're supposed to do. It just changes everything for him, because if Rudy wasn't here and they were going out in the first round or not making the playoffs, I guarantee ESPN would be saying, when's Ant going to want out? Like, what is happening? And so to have that built around him is just like incredibly important for the chances of this being a harmonious union for a very long time.
I think that also you have to give credit to Gerson Rosas for making that selection, because it wasn't a slam dunk.
It was not an easy one.
It was not a slam dunk. You can't be intellectually dishonest about who you were going to pick at that time, because James Wiseman and LaMelo Ball were all up there. So you have to be honest about that. But also, undrafted free agent, that bringing in Naz Reid and then drafting Jaden
down there.
Bringing Jaden. So those three players are the cornerstone. But then the swashbuckling Tim Conley comes in and does and no, you're serious. Like the move to get Rudy Gobert, people don't understand how great Rudy is. When I hear Rudy slander, I just want to go slap people. Seriously, I want to go slap Charles Barkley or Shaquille O'Neal or whoever.
Draymond.
The Rudy slander is just ridiculous, because we know as Timberwolves fans, because we watch Rudy game in and game out, how important he is to this team, and what he's meant to making this team a high leverage team game in and game out, season in and season out. And so Tim and the staff and making these moves that have made this team a legitimate contender. But Anthony Edwards, though, how he's wired up, he's special. And the fact that, and here's the most important thing of all, John, is he wants to be great.
For sure.
It's the work ethic to get into the gym and to want to be great as much as he works. This dude works his butt off. And what he does in these end-of-game situations, man, is just so much fun to watch.
Good stuff, Don. Thank you.
We got another. I had a two-prong, but quick,
Okay.
I'll sit down. You guys did not start on TV. You came on TV. And for someone to start on TV, I just want to know what you learned, if you respect TV more after being behind the scenes, what you think is harder, and what you like about it.
Radio it's all just fun. It's just fun, John. It really is. Like, you've done TV with us. You know how much fun we have. When you work with great people, it doesn't really matter. Like, I'm so proud to have worked with Chad Hartman, who does a great job on WCCO. If you listen to Chad on his radio show, he's the greatest interviewer that you'll ever see or hear. We used to do it. Like, I can't believe, John, like back in the day when I first started broadcasting, my first year we broadcasted, we went to Toronto and did an exhibition game in '98, and was Vince Carter's rookie year. We had Vince Carter in 1998 when we went to Toronto. We had him on the pregame show on Visiting Radio.
Yeah.
And we had him on the postgame show afterwards, after Toronto beat us. We had Vince Carter on pregame and postgame on Visiting Radio. Like, that's unheard of. Chad Hartman used to sit at center court, and he used to interview Kevin Garnett postgame. This is the height of Kevin Garnett. This is Kevin Garnett MVP season, 2003, 2004. And before that, Chad Hartman would sit at center court and interview Kevin Garnett for 5 to 10 minutes. And KG it's some of the most compelling radio you've ever heard in your entire life. So I will never forget my time with Chad doing radio. But doing TV with the great people I've worked with, it's just so much fun, Don. It's just like we've had a really great run. And the thing about being on TV too is that you can lose on the court, but we can win on TV. Mm-hmm. And that's how it is probably in your job too. Like, your teams may be losing, but you might have written some of your best pieces when teams have been losers, right?
Or I can write a great piece and lose on TV, because that's the thing, is like that's my respect for TV. When I got on it, it was like you and Don and Katie and Michael, and everyone makes it so natural. Like, you're just having a conversation. When I get on the TV and the camera is on me and I got someone in my ear, I'm like, this is not natural at all. And I'm trying to say something out of a script, and I'm stumbling over myself. So I have just a huge amount of respect for anyone that can just be themselves in front of a camera, because it's not.
I gotta tell you, that's how much you're loved, though. I mean, like, you're so loved as a beat reporter in this town that you got on our broadcast.
Yeah,
they were able to bring you on as a sideline.
I'm sure plenty of people.
John Krasinski on as a sideline.
Plenty of people are looking like, how did this ugly little dude get on who can't even put two words together in front of a camera?
Sexiest man alive. You're the sexiest
That's
man
true,
alive.
That's true. Yeah,
Are we doing a manscaping commercial here?
No manscape right now.
We are not, and it's such a shame. It was the best advertising ever. Is John turning purple while talking about?
I used it, though. I was authentic. I used it. So.
Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Beautiful.
Let's do it.
Fire away.
Hey, Nick from Minneapolis, first-time caller, long-time listener.
Welcome.
So a couple buddies and I were talking about the defense and how it's kind of a contrast from last year. We had such a great defense last year, and we were looking over some of the pairings, and we noticed a lot of our worst defensive pairings on the team are with McDaniels or with Nas. And we wanted to kind of ask what you think about that and how we can get that moving in the right direction.
Thanks, Nick. Appreciate it.
I think my first kind of analysis of it is you can definitely see that all of these guys are still hesitant in everything that they're doing, even when, let's even say when Julius and Dante are off the floor, but especially when they're on, they're just learning each other. And when you hesitate just for a half of a second in the NBA, you're toast. And one of the things that was so overwhelming and unbelievable while watching the team last year play defense was that there was zero hesitation. They were like, I'm coming out and I'm going to just snatch your soul from you from the very first start. And they do not, this group yet does not have that confidence in each other. And it's not a bad thing. It's not like they're not getting along. It's not like that. But like you can see Jaden, Ant to a degree, Rudy, like they're looking over their shoulder wondering, is this guy covering for me or is he not? And do I have to be in two places at once, or can I hold my water and be where I'm supposed to be? And that only takes time. We saw it the first year with Rudy as well. Like, they were not a very good defensive team, or certainly not what they were last year. But even with Cat and his limitations, they knew exactly where he was going to be. And that you just cannot duplicate that, without time and without reps. And so I just sense just a little bit of hesitancy and a lack of trust in each other right now that I think can formulate over the season. But there's no doubt right now, like that level of intensity and that level of cohesion is not close. And they have to manufacture that over the next couple of months if they really want to reassert themselves, in the Western Conference.
Perimeter defense is so important, but also is offensive efficiency. Mm-hmm. I think that when you have a tremendous amount of turnovers, and live ball turnovers particularly, like Minnesota's 27th in the NBA in turnover percentage. So I think that you've got to be able to clean up that part of the game, because so much of that impacts defensive transition and being able to get easy buckets. But the perimeter defense has to be better, that's for sure. And then also, like what you're saying, integrating Dante and Julius into the system in terms of, like, especially the Nas the Nas Julius minutes. Those minutes have to be better.
Yeah.
That's kind of the nuts and bolts of it, and it's going to get better because they're going to be adjusting, and the coaching staff will coach them up, and they'll watch video, they'll get better at it. But Carl used to toggle back and forth between center and power forward last year, and he did it beautifully, right? And it took a little while to figure that out, because the first Rudy season, Carl was hurt so much, but it took them a little while to figure that out. And so Carl did figure it out. So now Nas is in that role. Nas is in that role of having to toggle between power forward and center. And
Nas has been trying to change himself into a 3-4 essentially with Carl and Rudy. So I think
he's had so much, in terms of being able to change who he is and what he has to do on the floor. So I don't know. I just have a lot of confidence in this coaching. My mantra has been for the last 4 years, in Finchy we trust. So I just figure whenever there's been a problem that's popped up, Finchy's just whack-a-mole that thing back down, and he's figured it out. And I think they're going to be able to do that with the defense.
Well, and you can also see, though, that early on, Finch is struggling as much as anyone to just, figure out what lineups can I trust, who do I go with, and we're so used to seeing him make all the right moves, and then he's come out a couple of times in post-game press conferences and said, I got to be better. I missed this. I didn't do this right. And that just speaks to me of a coach that is still trying to figure out exactly how all these pieces fit together. Now, it will happen over time, but right now, he's searching a little bit, and that's what's taking time. Yep.
Good question. Thank you.
Chris.
All right. Diehard Wolves fan, huge fan of the podcast. Never miss an episode, but wanted to get your guys' thoughts on the in-season tournament. We've got looks to be a good game here between Boston and Cleveland on the big screens here, but wanted to get your thoughts on, I guess, the tournament in general, and then also a little bit on how it relates to the Wolves as we're kind of getting into that now.
I love everything but the courts.
You don't like the courts?
No.
If you would have seen the Portland court in person, it was awesome.
Okay.
It was tremendous.
Yeah, but this green thing is an abomination. But I love that they're trying something new to inject some sort of competitiveness and give a damn in the early part of the regular season, because that's a problem for the league. They have to figure out a way to get these players all the way invested and get fans invested in an 82-game season while the NFL is going on. And you can tell when you're in the arena for these games, there is an uptick in competitiveness and intensity, and these games have been really good over the last year plus now. So anything that they can do to figure out a way, even if it's manufactured, go for it, because what is there to lose is my kind of view on it.
Hey, we're sitting there in Portland, and Finchy was not emptying the bench out when we were down 20.
Yeah.
We're down 20, and he's still thinking about that point differential that is being a tiebreaker. So it's definitely changed the way the coaches approach the games, and I think it does add a special dynamic to it. And we're in the early stages. They finally have a name for it. It's the Emirates Cup, right? So so they have a name for it now. It's going to be a tradition. I think the traditions aren't just instantly instituted. It's going to be a process. So I'm all in, man. I think it's going to be great, and I don't mind the courts. Some are better than others. Even that's going to evolve, John. You have to agree. Those are going to evolve as well.
No doubt.
Good question, Chris. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Alex, longtime fan and listener. I just wanted to know, obviously it was a very small sample size with Conley sitting out just the one Portland game, but it seems to me that Dante and Nikhil are both combo guards, but not necessarily point guards. Ant didn't really bring it up that much. Do you think there's more room for Point Ant going forward, given what we've seen from those two potentially being just in not their best role when they're just running the show?
It's a good observation in terms of you can see that it is not natural for either Nikhil or Dante to be the floor general quarterback. They can make plays, they can do some things, but it's much more A to B than Mike, who comes in and it's just natural and goes. With Ant, I think that my concern in that role would be you already ask a lot of him defensively. You already ask a lot of him out of shot creation and things. Now do you want to put this on him as well? Because I thought one of the things that Miami did really well in that game was they pressured full court a lot, and it took everyone out of their offense, the Wolves out of their offensive rhythm, because Nikhil and Dante and even Ant has to work harder to get into the front court and get into their offense. And I think other opponents will probably see that and try to exploit that a little bit more. So, given he's so talented, you want to say that, he can take on more of this, but I just would be a little bit worried about that in terms of just the burden.
Obviously, the thing that's looming is if anything ever happened to Mike.
Right.
That's the thing that's looming in all of our minds, right? I mean, Mike's 37. The chances of him being as relatively healthy as he was last year is it's not high. I mean, we're hoping for it. We're hoping that he doesn't. I mean, we're resting him when we need him. Obviously, in Portland, we did that. We rested Mike a game, but
how'd that go?
It was not great. It was not great. But you know what I'm betting on? I'm betting on Rob Dillingham.
Yes.
Being able to. Sometimes necessity is the mother of invention, right? So sometimes if someone were to get hurt, that's what would force somebody into duty. And I think that I'm going to make a bold prediction, John. I'm going to say by the end of the season, Rob Dillingham is going to be a rotation player for the Minnesota Timberwolves. I'm going to say, like, as much as we love J-Mac, I mean, think about J-Mac and what that image of him on the court means, like instant, like energy, the way that he would be a shot in the arm, like for this offense and defense. I think that Rob Dillingham has ability to be able to do that and then more. So I'm just saying, like, we don't know what this kid's going to do, because this is what's great about sports. Is at the end of the day, what's great about sports, either you can hit a slider or you can't hit a slider. Either you can tackle somebody in the NFL or you can't tackle somebody. Either you can make a play or not make a play in the NBA. And I think that when Rob Dillingham gets a chance to do it, I think that young man is going to make a play.
He looked good in the Phoenix game, that first shift. I mean, it was popping. He is 19 years old, and he is all of 19.
Yeah.
Like, you stand in front of him, and he is as baby-faced and as wide-eyed as everything.
He is.
But he is so much more natural as just a ball handler, put it between my legs, get things going, and get to my spots. It's going to take time for him, but you can see a pathway, like Jim said, to him being that guy, and he's eventually going to have to be that guy. He's just not quite ready yet, and I think the more that Finch can put him out there and just give him a chance, I think that's their best alternative going forward.
Good question. Thank you.
Hey, gentlemen, this is Mike from Minneapolis.
Mike.
Jim, I'm glad you made your way inside.
He was my escort in here tonight.
Yeah, you were lost. A suburban guy lost in the big city.
Not so Secret Service.
Wide-eyed.
And you will be coming back, right?
Of course, Mike, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
My question is, and I actually thought of this as you two were talking about the human element, I think specifically around the Rudy trade, right, John? You were saying that you kind of underrated that. I just want to hear from both of you your best Karl Anthony Towns story that has nothing to do with basketball. He seemed like a wonderful, member of our community.
Well, now it's a 3-hour show.
And Johnny, I know there was the story about your daughter that you shared, but just want to hear your best cat off the court story, if you could.
Well, so my best cat off the court story is I played a lot of golf with Karl Anthony Towns, and we had a assistant coach here. His name was Vince Lagarza. Vince is with Phoenix right now, but Vince was with Mike Budenholzer in Atlanta, and then when Flip became coach, he brought Vince up from Atlanta. So Vince and Cat were like this. They were like really, Vince is 6'10" himself. He's from San Francisco. He's a really good post coach, and so Karl and Vince got to be really, really close. In fact, I'll tell you. Just a funny story, because so when Karl won Rookie of the Year, he wanted to do something for Vince for helping him get to the Rookie of the Year award, and so Vince is like, "Well, I don't want to watch. I don't want anything." He goes, "If you want to do something for me, you can get me on Augusta. That's what you can do. You can get me on Augusta." And so it's no small task, right? So Karl makes it happen. Karl gets Vince Lagarza onto Augusta. So, the die is cast. Those two are thick as thieves. And so the other guy he's a day one Timberwolves employee. His name is Jeff Munichie. Jeff Munichie and I went and played golf with Vince and with Karl the day before training camp was going to start. And I want to say it was Tibbs' first year. It was right then. So Karl had been telling us how he can hit a 400-yard drive. He can hit the ball 400 yards. I'm like, Karl, 400 yards? That's ridiculous. That's like Happy Gilmore, like trying to hit the ball and drive the green. It's ridiculous. It's not going to happen. He goes, "Oh yeah, I can do it. And so Karl, in his ever-loving way, he's just so lovable. He's trying to swing out of his shoes, and he went 400 yards that way, and then went 400 yards that way. And we're literally on hole number 18. And Karl goes, "Okay, last drive of the season right here. This is the last drive of the summer." And he hauls off and he hits one. And he whistled it. This is at Hillcrest Country Club. It's in St. Paul. 18th hole. He whistles it down the right side of the fairway. And it's going straight. It's actually drawing a little bit. It's this beautiful draw down the fairway. and it's a hill, so you can't see where it ended up. And so he hits it so far, and it's straight. And then we get down there, and we can't find his ball anywhere. It's like a 410-yard par 4, and we can't find it anywhere. And so I'm in the back of the green. I'm getting ready to putt, and all of a sudden I look behind the green, and I see a ball behind the green. It's Karl Anthony Towns' ball. He hit it 420 yards to where it was. And so I was like, I was like, you did it. You did it. You finally hit a ball 400 yards. You did it.
I'll tell two. One is kind of poke fun at him because I can do that. But, like, Karl's personality is a lot. And the way that I would sum it up is this way. We were on the road, I think it was Sacramento last year, and we were just having conversation in the pregame. And, we were in the locker room, and it was me, Jace, Frederick, and Dane Moore was in there as well. And so Jace and I were on one side of the locker room talking to somebody, Mike Conley or something, and then Dane was talking to Karl on the other side, and they were having some sort of conversation. And it was going on, and then it finishes up, and Karl comes over to Jace and I and says, "Hey, I just made a great point to Dane, and I'm going to tell it to you guys as well." And we're like, "What?" But that was Karl. Like, he's just like, he likes to kind of gas it up a little bit, and he has fun. But I'll finish with like the Nita story that like everyone's pretty aware of. But we had exchanged text messages that night, and just talking about how he's feeling and all that stuff. And he said he's going to come to Nita's game. And okay, great. That's I did not believe it. Whatever. I got up in the morning, and I saw the Instagram post that he has where he's at the Timberwolves practice facility at 3 a.m. just getting some last shots up, kind of letting everyone know about it, which he likes to do. But like, it was clearly emotional. Like, he was, I saw his Instagram story, and it's 3:11 a.m. and him and his dad are shooting shots. And Nita's game was at, I believe, 10 a.m. in Blaine. And Karl lives in like the YZ area, so it's like a 40-minute drive. And so I'm just like, there's just no way. Like, okay, he was there at 3 a.m. He's got all this stuff going on. He is not going to come to this. And so I didn't mention it to my wife, didn't mention it to the kids at all, because I wasn't expecting anything. And, we're in the first half of the game in Blaine at this National Sports Center, and he texts me, and for people to know, like, I have my phone, and I have people in there that are well known, and so I kind of hide their numbers. So if I ever were to lose my phone, hopefully people don't figure out who it is. And I have it at 32. I have it as in him in my phone, and Nita wears 32 on her jersey for Karl because she thinks they're best friends. And so I get the text from 32, and he's like, "Hey, I'm pulling up." And then a phone call. He calls me right after and says, "Where are you guys at?" I'm just like, "You are not here right now. There's just no way you're here." And he's like, "No, yeah, we are pulling in right now." And he like stuck his hand out the window as he's driving into this huge complex. And I'm like, "Hey, yeah, okay, here we're Field 59 North or whatever." And he starts walking in, and a couple of the parents who are on Nita's team, parents are just like, he walks by him, and he's wearing a Timberwolves shirt and a Timberwolves hat, very subtle stuff from Karl, and he's 7 feet tall. And he walks by, and I see a couple of the parents, and they're just like, "Is that Karl Anthony Towns? Like, who else would it be?" But you just are not even thinking. And so my son, who has been through a lot of health issues, I just poked him. He was kind of laying down. He was having a hard time that day with some of the things. And I just, he said, "I don't want to go to the game." And I said, "Owen, you're going to the game. Like, let's go." Just thinking this might be a possibility. And he was sitting on the floor, and I just picked him up, and it's, "Hey, who's that?" And he looks up, and he sees him, and he just runs over to Karl, and Karl grabs him, and he just hugs him, and says, "Hey, like, you're not in a wheelchair anymore." And Owen is just like, huge smile on his face, and how are you doing? And Karl just like puts his hand on his shoulder and said, "Hey, proud of you." And it was not a big thing, but it's just a very little thing to let Owen know that he knew what was going on, that he knew what he had been through. And I had told Karl the night before, like, "Hey, Nita cried herself to sleep. Owen was having a hard time with it. And so he watched Nita play for a half, and then Nita came over, and he absolutely just enveloped her. And for a full minute, he's having a conversation. He's whispering to her, and he's offering her encouragement and telling her things that I did not ask him. I wasn't going to break that confidence, but those are the kinds of things that have, for 9 years in Minnesota, I knew he had that in him, and I'd seen him do that in other ways. And so when anyone across the league would say he's soft or you can't win with him or whatever, I would just I really would kind of get my hackles up about it, because I've seen the heart that this guy has. And so for him to share all of that and to take all of that time while his life was turned upside down was above and beyond anything I've ever experienced in 25 years in this business.
One of the sweetest guys in my 27 years with the Timberwolves. Class act.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good question. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to make this the last question. Thank you all for being here. At the end, let's give Jim and John a nice hand. Yes, sir.
Yeah, great story. Hey, John. Hey, Jim. Joe from Winthrop. Just have a question. You talked a little bit about positionless basketball, and I'm just wondering, what do you think of the current product? We've all been watching for quite a while now, the game, and been around the game, watched it, and seen the style play quite a bit. Jim, would you like to see the post play come back? Would you like to see back to the basket? And could narrowing the lane
We're not
create
doing that? No, that's not happening. We're not doing that. I miss the matchups. I miss, because we don't really have classic point guards anymore. I mean, we don't really have classic shooting guards anymore. We don't have classic small. All those positions bring up images in our mind. And John, think about, we're in a text thread together with some people, and there was a video in that text thread about the matchup between Kevin Garnett and Tim Duncan. Do you guys remember the matchups between Kevin Garnett and Tim Duncan? How amazing those things were and how competitive it was. And when we would do those games in the late 90s, early 2000s, when it was Tim Duncan and David Robinson, and it was Dean Garrett and Kevin Garnett, and we would go down to San Antonio, or we would play in the Alamo Dome and those plays. I mean, it was. I just miss those days. I miss those days, those power forward matchups. And so we talk about Julius Randle and all these machinations that teams have to do now. Think about the last two games, what's happened with trying to match up with Julius Randle. In Sacramento, they put Alex Len in the game. And
for
so
8 minutes, yeah.
And so I know he got 2 fouls right away, had to go sit down. But then Phoenix starts Mason Plumlee to be able to match up with Julius Randle. And so I just think it's sad that we don't have those matchups, the matchups of the great power forwards. The positionless basketball is made, and it's great. I'm not going to sit there and say Kevin Garnett was part of that positionless basketball too. By the way,
he ushered it in.
He was part of the. Him and Dirk, really did a great job of ushering it in and being so talented. Rasheed Wallace, but there's something that of Karl Malone. And all those great power forwards that were part of the game, these matchups that you would have at the center position as well. I think there are still great center matchups. And Nikola Jokic is one of those, the Nikola Jokic Karl Anthony Towns matchup. Like Scott Hastings, who's the analyst for the Denver Nuggets, we would talk about, man, we're going to be able to watch Nikola Jokic and Karl Anthony Towns go at it for the next 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be great. And they're still going to have that, but I don't know. I miss it. You know what I mean? I miss those kind of matchups, and so we don't have those right now. And so I think that the game's going to evolve, but I don't know, JK. I love the game the way it is. I love the spacing in the game, and I love watching the Timberwolves play. I love Anthony Edwards. I love these incredible athletes. The shot making has never been better. The shot making is incredible right now. The shots that you see these guys make, and the rosters from top to bottom, all these dudes are so skilled. But for some reason, I don't know what it is. We don't have the drama between the matchups. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
From 20 years ago.
Yeah,
Think about 20 years ago.
Well, I think that for me, the thing that was so compelling about last year's Wolves is that they were doing something totally different than most other teams in the league. And so there was a uniqueness to the way that they played. And you didn't know, was this going to work or was this not going to work? But it was something different. And I do think that if there is a problem with the league overall, it is that it's too homogenized, and that we have gotten to a point where you either can shoot threes or you can't shoot threes. And so if there are things to legislate into the game to bring more variance, I think that would help. Then you can have a team try to go ultra big and beat you up in the paint and win games that way. And you can have the Warriors shoot a bunch of threes and try to win games that way. If there's a way to kind of level that out, and I don't have an answer for it. I mean, do you back the arc up? You can't take away the corner threes because then no one would dunk at all. But there's got to be something that can be done in a way where, like, the Major League Baseball took the shift away. And, like, they recognize that, okay, if we have the shift on, it's the smart play. It's the analytically sound way to play defense in baseball. But it also has turned it into a true outcome game where you either strike out, you walk, or you hit a home run. And the baseball recognize that's not conducive to entertaining a fan base over 162 games. And similar to the NBA, it's like either you hit 15 or 18 threes and you win, or you just have an off shooting night and you lose. And so if there's some things that can be done to sort of really flatten that curve, I think I'd be all for that. And I would not worry about, kind of the history and the records and all those things. I do think that there are too many teams that play exactly the same way right now for very good reason. And if we can get back to getting people in and getting teams built in unique ways and really matching up and seeing what wins, I think that's really compelling.
It's one of the things why I love Julius Randle.
Yeah. He's different.
He's different. He's a different kind of player, and we have him on our team. He's a guy that can post up, and how many guys know how to guard post-ups anymore? I mean, it's a different dynamic, and I just think that his skill set, the fact that he can shoot threes, he can post up, he can play off the catch, he can play in isolation, he can drive it, he can get to the free throw line. Like, I just think that makes him a unique player, and that's why when we got him, I was like, this is really different. This is a different way of, and Chris Finch knows how to utilize this guy because he had him in New Orleans, and that makes him it's a special relationship that they have. So that's why I think at the end of the day, in Finchy we trust.
Mm-hmm.
Great stuff. Hey, thank you all for being here. Thanks for making such a fun show. Please give Jim and John a hand.
And we'll do the raffle here in just a second, so hold tight. But yeah, thank you everyone for coming on a Tuesday night and spending some time. I'll be back. I'll be out here afterward for a little while. If you want to come up and say hello and all that, ask a question, I'm happy to do that as well. So,
all right, thank you all. Looking forward to the next show at Headflyer.